Turn on the recording. Okay, then I see team room number 10.
Sorry, I'm gonna change it. Just
Okay.
give me a second. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Oh, that's all right. So among the challenges that we have, this course is starting out on a new platform this month. And so it'll be exciting to see how that works out. Hi, Karen, how are you tonight? Okay.
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. So there'll be a learning curve to this platform that we're using. We're used to using Blackboard, and that was a learning curve when we started using that. We were using something different at the time. So now we'll be using this platform. So we'll see how many years we go with this one before we switch to something new and different. So I guess they say that's the spice of life when you get to change, do things differently. And we see that from year to year in our school districts as well, don't we? We'll see new things being tried out and see which ones work and which ones don't work. And okay, well, we'll try something different this year. So it's always exciting. You never know what's coming up next. Okay, so for most of you, this is your last course in this series. So I congratulate you. It's been a kind of a rough road at times, challenges along the way. But if you made it this far, and you'll be able to finish up just fine. You're probably aware that 696 piggybacks onto 695. And so there are things that you need from 695 to be able to do 696 course. And that's why the university doesn't allow individuals to take both 695 and 696 at the same time, because you won't be able to complete either one and be able to do a good job. So for most of you, you're finished with that. You've gotten your last assignments turned in, they're getting graded. And as long as you don't have anything pressing from 695, we can make this work. But you'll notice that the very first assignment that you need to turn in this week is your capstone paper from 695, along with the articles that you used for 695. And so that's one of the reasons also why the timing is so critical, because if you don't have those finished, then you'll be late on your very first assignment. So we have 8 weeks to work with this course. And if you need more time after that, then I can give you more time. Just keep in mind that if we don't complete on time, then that means that you'll have a delayed graduation. For some of you, it's going to be kind of critical because your pay grades are dependent on you completing the coursework, getting everything finished for this course that's ending in 2 months. So hopefully that works out well for you. If your pay is dependent on getting the degree conferred, then you might want to approach your district and tell them that you're in your final course, and see if they will give you an extension to allow you to finish this course and get your degree conferred to you so that you get that bump in your pay grade. So we've been able to do that in the past. In fact, I had to do that many years ago myself, so I know what a situation that can be in. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the core elements of the course. I had to make a number of changes in the course. I was not given the course shell until Monday afternoon. And so that's why if you looked at the course on Sunday or Monday, it looks different than what it does right now. And because I had to upload a number of items into the course. One of them was the sample paper. In the old course, they had about 5 or 6 different samples. In reviewing those samples, they looked very confusing when you put them all together. And I don't like things to be confusing. It's hard for students to react well to things that are confusing. So I simplified the sample. I took one paper from beginning through its end and divided it up into the chapters. And that's how I presented that as the sample. So there shouldn't be any confusion. Chapter 1 leads to chapter 2, and chapter 2 leads to chapter 3. Chapter 3 leads to chapter 4. So in following it through, it should be simple to follow. Hopefully there'll be no challenges in trying to figure that out. I also teach SPD 695, so I'm completely aware of the assignments and what the assignment should look like. So there won't be any surprises. And for example, chapter 2 of 695 looks very much like chapter 2 of this course. It just has more details in it. Okay, so for example, in chapter 2, you had to do an article review of 8 different articles, and you had to upload those 8 articles, and you had to do individual reviews on those 8 articles. So basically, that's going to be the same thing again for chapter 2 in this course, except that you don't have to redo those articles that you did in 695. You're going to add 4 new articles, and that will complete the 12. Now, the only time that that might be different is if you found that your research question was too challenging and you could not find enough information, and perhaps you decided to change your research question. So if you changed your research question enough to necessitate all new articles, then you would need to get all 12 new articles. But most of the time, you don't need to do that. If you're going to change your research question, it is okay to change it just enough so that you can get all of the information that you need to complete the course, to work with your research question, to get your articles, and to work with them. Most of the time, you don't need to radically change your research question. Just maybe change it just a little bit if you were not satisfied with what you were working with in 695. Okay, but most of the time that's not a problem. Getting sufficient number of articles is quite a bit easier if you use the National University Library. In fact, that's what I recommend. To my students in 695, I always recommend that because it's so much easier to get adequate articles that will actually meet the needs of the course. Many times in your research, if you try to type in the whole research question into that search bar, it will limit you as to the number of articles that you're going to be working with. So if you cut down the number of words and just work with a couple of keywords, then you'll find that you get many more hits, and the articles will be more appropriate to what you're working with. So that's just a suggestion. So in 696, you noticed in week 1 that the syllabus is broken into 3 parts. Okay, so the first part is an introduction of myself and also the department chairs for the course being taught. So that contains my contact information. And then I've provided that also in the course syllabus and in messages that I've sent out to you. I believe I've given you my contact information. You're aware that I'm in Florida, so I'm 3 hours advanced of you. So right now it is about 9:15. So where you guys have got sunlight out, I've got darkness outside my window. And of course it's stormy weather here, so I hope I don't lose my internet connection. So the part that you need to download and print out is the part that says capstone proposal. So that has, let's see how many pages. Should have about 19 pages. And that gives you a blow-by-blow of the requirements for each of the assignments. Okay. It's in quite a bit of detail. So hopefully there's nothing left to the imagination, but I try not to micromanage you as students. I feel that you're quite capable of coming up with many of the ideas that you need, but I give you enough so that you know what elements are absolutely required in each paper so that you get the maximum number of points. And as we have our different meetings, then we'll go over exactly what is needed for each paper. And of course, you're going to add your own details. But as long as you cover the points that are delineated in the syllabus, then you'll do just fine. Okay, so for example, on page 1, it gives you some information there. And it says that the motto is the touchstone of all scientific research is order. In the experimental analysis of behavior, the orderliness of relations between environmental variables and the subject's behavior is at once the operating assumption upon which the experimenter proceeds, the observed fact that permits doing so, and the goal that continuously focuses on experimental design decision. And that's from Johnson and Pennypacker, 1993. So
where are we reading?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, where are we reading?
I'm on
Where are we?
I'm in the syllabus. This is the part that I suggest
first one?
that you download. I
So
think
part
it's
one?
3. I believe it's part.
Oh, okay,
3.
okay. Okay, thank you. The capstone checklist,
Yes.
where it starts with mechanics. You can move to mechanics section lower, title page, abstract.
Yeah, this is actually, if you take a look at, let's see here.
So there's syllabus part 1 with the policies, then there's part 2 with the weekly schedule, and then there's part 3 with the checklist.
Yeah. Yeah, so you want part 3 because that gives you all of the elements that are required for each paper. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Rebecca. Anytime that you have a question, just stop me and ask your question. Don't be afraid to do that. Your kids in the classroom do that to you all the time. So, you know, I got used to that many,
Yeah.
many years ago.
I'm
Yes, go
actually
ahead.
Rebecca, and I do have a question. My professor from the previous class, unfortunately, was not the best with grading. So she
Same.
hasn't really graded the past few weeks. And it just makes me a little like uneasy about turning in an assignment that hasn't even been touched or read. She hasn't graded since like week 6. So do you have any suggestions? I don't like to turn stuff in late. Like it's just not my MO.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for your other professor, but I know sometimes we can get behind a little bit. I teach more than one class at a time. So there'll be certain weeks that the assignment load is pretty high for the classes. And so we might
Oh, no.
get into a point where we get a little bit behind. But
No, I definitely understand that and appreciate, I like completely understand where you're coming from. I'm just worried about turning in like the signature assignment when it hasn't been great. Like I don't want to like push back like my timeline, if that makes sense.
No, I hear you and I appreciate the comment. So I would just go ahead and submit on time. And, if the professor has been late, like I've been late on a couple of times, not on purpose, but just because of circumstances. So I'm not going to, give you a hard time about it if it's my fault.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Vote,
Appreciate
yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, not a problem. No, I understand that. And there could be a variety of different things that happen. I've had situations where I had been assigned a course and the university forgot to tell me about it. And so we were about 7 days into the course and I'm getting all these messages. Where are these messages coming from? And then finally I contacted my supervisor and she says, oh, you didn't get the assignment. And I says, no, I'm totally unaware that I have an assignment right now. Of course, I was working on a different assignment. So then I had a mad scramble trying to get caught up. But the nice thing is that I've taught this a number of times. And so I'm pretty familiar with the course and what's needed in it. And actually in 695 as well. And just as a little bit of information, this course that you're doing right now used to be a course that would take just about 1 year to 2 years to complete. So they've really streamlined it. They've really cut it down, and that's nice because I think it's great to work with students for 1 year or 2 at a time. That's wonderful. You get to know the individual pretty well, but it's very stressful because we have our personal lives that we have to deal with, plus school, things like that. And if you're going to take 2 years to do a dissertation, you pretty much have to have a lot of time on your hands. And so I was, for one, I was very grateful that was changed. So now this is 2 months and I can give you more time if you need it. But the way the course is set up, hopefully you won't need that extra time. But if you do, it's there, okay? And don't be embarrassed if you have to take advantage of that. Okay. All right, so like I say, you need to print that document so that you have all of those assignments and you'll have blow by blow. And if you have your course open and you can see the document, if you just open up there, for example, if we go to page 3, And let me see if I have
Where was it again?
page 3.
No, where is the document? I'm on the,
It should be in week 1.
It's under week 1 and it says syllabus part 1, part 2.
You have to
part
scroll down.
Yeah.
It's not the videos.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I have to get used to that new design because before it was encapsulated a little bit easier.
Oh.
You could find those things a little bit easier. But each platform has its good and its bad. So
okay, so I'm on syllabus and it says in 3 parts, but all I have are the YouTube.
Right. So you
Video.
have to scroll down all the way till you get to
Keep
something that
going.
says APA style resources, additional resources, and then under that, there's the 3 syllabuses.
Oh, okay, got
So-
it. Thank you.
okay, do you see it now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, sadly, right at the moment, I can't have my Zoom open and the course open at the same time. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think I have the right one here. And then we can take a look at that. All right, so hopefully you can see part of this at least. Let me see if I can expand this. Okay, so can you see that where it says chapter 1?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so when we scroll back up a little bit here, running head SPD 696, use your own running head here. I'll point out that we're using APA style 7th edition. And in that 7th edition, there have been some changes. One of the changes is that for most papers, you don't need a running head. Now, it also says in APA edition 7 that if your professor instructs you to use a running head, then that's what you should use. Because of the nature of this paper, it is preparing you to actually write a proposal. Then I'm going to ask you to use the running head. Okay, now, one thing about the running head is that you no longer need to write the words running head. So on the very first page, on your title page, then you're going to go ahead and put your running head. So if, and I'll pull up a sample in just a moment so that you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so you'll see that here, for example, on this capstone proposal checklist, it talks about mechanics. Okay, so you notice that there's some places to put check marks. Okay, so these are things that would be required in each of the papers. So your capstone is submitted only in a Microsoft Word file. Okay, so do not use PDF, do not use the Apple format, do not use any other format other than Microsoft Word. Now, the reason for it is that in the past, sometimes with Blackboard, you would submit a paper and the formatting would be off, and yet you knew for a fact that you had formatted everything properly. So that was a big problem. I don't know how it's going to be with this platform that we're going to be using. Hopefully that problem is eliminated. But until we know for sure, I'm going to ask you to use Microsoft Word only. That way I can actually open up your document in Word. I can take a look at the formatting. and see if you've formatted the paper properly. When you take a look at the tutorial that I left in the course, you'll notice that I show you how to turn on a tool in Microsoft Office that will allow you to look at the formatting of your paper. You'll be able to see every key mark, every keystroke that you use to develop your paper. So that will help you in case you're having problems with a paper not showing up the proper format. Okay, so that's in that tutorial. Okay, so you're going to use APA style. Microsoft Word has a little part in there in the ribbon where it says APA style. That's Microsoft's idea of what APA is all about. And they don't have a very good idea of what APA is all about. So don't try to use that. The latest style that Microsoft has is version 6, and that's already been out of date for more than a year now. So we're using the 7th edition. Okay, the font size would be 12. Please use Times New Roman. Use 1-inch margins around each page. Do not use mirror imaging because you're not going to bind your paper at this time. If you were going to bind your paper, then you would use mirror images so that the where you staple the paper together would not interfere with any of the typing. Everything needs to be double spaced except for your appendices. The appendices are the only part of the paper that do not get double spaced. And then you'll use your normal levels of heading. Okay, you'll use standard English. So that's your grammar, punctuation. There should be no terminology confusion. In academia, we have a habit of inventing new words for many, many things. So we do that all the time, and we don't give any thought to it because we figure that other teachers will know exactly what we're talking about. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. So you'll have some acronyms that can mean one thing to one individual, and they'll mean something totally different to somebody else. So anytime that you're using an acronym, the first time that you use that acronym, if you would define it and then put the acronym in parentheses right after it, then you don't have to define it again in the paper. Right, and then it should be well organized, should have logical sequencing and structure, etc. The citations need to be correct. So that means your in-text citations have to be correct. And please keep this in mind that anytime that you have an in-text citation, you must have a reference for that. And by the same token, any references that you have, they need an in-text citation. So when I go through some papers, I find that there are no in-text citations. Okay, well that's a citation error. So please avoid those. And then when you attach your indices or appendices, I should say, make sure that you have referenced that material somewhere in the body of the paper. Please keep in mind that an appendix is not part of the body of the paper. As such, it appears after your references. So it's not actually a part of your paper. That's why they're called appendixes. Okay, and then please use third person. So refer to yourself as a scholarly practitioner. Avoid using first person. So therefore, you're not going to say, well, I analyzed or I did something else, but just say the scholarly practitioner or the teacher or the instructor or the teacher experimenter et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right, so on the title page, you need to have your running head. You need to have the name of the capstone project, full student's name as it appears with the university, the name of the master's program. For example, it might be Master of Education and Special Education. And then the full name of the professor, the month and year of the start of the course. For example, we're starting in September 2021. So the date that you're going to put on your papers will be September 2021. Okay. Your abstract is going to state the purpose, who your participants are, the independent variable and dependent variable, the experimental design, and the hypothesized results. Okay, does anyone remember what that independent variable is?
The unchanging variable, for example, if you have students who have anxiety and you're testing whether or not art therapy supports them, the students would be the independent variable. The students.
Okay, very close. Very, very close. Okay, it won't be the students, it'll be the activity. Okay, it's the intervention.
Oh, right. You're right, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine, that's fine. You were on the right track. Okay, so don't worry about that. But just keep in mind, it's the intervention.
Opposite, yeah.
Yeah, so it's never the individuals. It's always the intervention. It's the new skill that you're trying to teach. So in the case that you're mentioning, then it would be whatever you're trying to teach the children so that they can overcome a certain difficulty, or
Right.
so that they can actually learn a new skill.
Right. So it would be the art therapy is the independent variable, and then the anxiety would be the dependent variable, the level of
Yeah,
anxiety.
it's the change in the anxiety level. Okay,
Right.
so that's what you want to see as a result.
Mhm.
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah, there's some confusion on that because when we were learning about these variables in high school and in other college classes, these variables were defined a little bit differently. So it's kind of a challenge to remember what they are for these research courses. All right, and then your hypothesized results. Now keep in mind that each abstract has to fit the paper. So your abstract for chapter 1 is going to fit your chapter 1. When you move into chapter 2, now your paper has changed. Now you have chapters 1 and 2. So now your abstract is going to need to change so that you're dealing with chapters 1 and chapters 2. And then the same thing's going to happen with chapter 3. Your abstract has to change to meet that. And then when you get to chapter 4, it's going to change again. So I'm going to make mention of something here, and hopefully there's no confusion on this. But when is the best time to write your abstract?
At the end or throughout each, like,
Okay. All right, thank you. Actually, after you've written your chapter, now you know what it's about, right? So that's the best time to write that abstract. Okay, if you try to write it at the very beginning, now you have to try to force your chapter to fit the abstract. And so that's kind of backwards. So we need to write the chapter first and then write that abstract. Okay, the abstract will make more sense that way. Now, that doesn't mean that you wait until you're finished with chapter 4, and now you're going to write one abstract for chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. What it means is that after you write your chapter 1, then you develop your abstract for chapter 1, and then you put it there for your abstract. When you do chapters 1 and 2, when you're finished writing chapters 1 and 2, then your abstract should fit those two chapters. So is that making sense what I'm explaining?
So it's just one, it's still so silly, like not knowing the proper answer, but so it's one abstract for the whole entire thesis, right? Is that what you're saying?
Okay.
That you're building on it after every chapter?
Yeah, you're building on it for each chapter.
Okay.
Okay, so the abstract for chapter 1 is going to look a little bit different than the abstract for chapter 2. Okay, because now you're working with chapters 1 and 2.
So there's an abstract for each chapter.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
our final paper,
Thank
there's
you.
there's an abstract for each chapter, not for the entire paper.
no. Each paper replaces the one before it.
Okay,
Okay, so chapter 1, when you're finished with that and you're going to do chapter 2, you're going to submit chapter 1 and 2 together.
Oh, and then you add more information into the abstract
Right.
So it is only one abstract then.
for the
Yeah,
whole
there's
paper.
only going to be one abstract per paper.
So continuously edit the abstract throughout the process.
Yes, you can. Okay, but just keep in mind that you need to cover both of the chapters for 1 and 2, and then you have 3 chapters for 1, 2, and 3, 4 chapters for 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Now, can this just be like a living doc? If that makes, like, are we just every time? So when we're turning it in every week or every few weeks or whatever it is, we're turning in the same doc that we just keep adding the chapters to.
Yes,
right? Okay.
That's correct. You got it. You got it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And thank you for asking those clarifying questions, because basically that's the only way you're going to be able to understand what's required. So I appreciate those questions. Okay, so then in your chapter 1, your introduction, now you're going to notice that each of these items here is going to have a point value. So that's the maximum number of points that you're going to get for that section. For example, the introduction is 1 point. Now it makes a note here. It says that the first paragraph in chapter 1 is simply an introduction. Okay, it does not have a heading. So even though the word introduction is up here in your actual paper, you're not going to have that word introduction. Okay. The only reason why it's here is just so that it sets apart each section of the paper. All right, so then the first heading is going to be background of the study. And that is 2 points. Okay, so that's the background. That's what led you to recognize your topic as an important one in TK through 12 classrooms on a larger scale, etc. Okay, so the citations that you're going to use here, and you have a minimum of 2 citations, these citations need to come from the peer-reviewed journal articles that have been published within the last 10 years. Okay, most of your peer-reviewed articles doesn't really matter too much how old they are, but some of them need to be within the last 10 years. All right, then you have the statement of the problem. Okay, so it's not dependent on it's not dependent on you doing any research. It's what is found in many classrooms, but it may be a problem that you encounter with your own student, For example, see assignment 1 of SPD 695 to get you started. So here we're referring back to something that you did in 695. Now, this does not mean that you can just copy and paste that assignment and call it the assignment here for 696. Okay, the software is going to tell me if that's been copied from a previous paper. So I'd rather not see that. You can base it on that chapter 1, but it should not be a copy and paste. So you use some of that information, but reword it in a way that it's not going to come across as being plagiarized. Okay, the purpose of the study is 1 point, and that has to match your research question like a mirror image. So use the same verbiage that you use in the purpose of the study. It has to appear in your research question. Okay, audience. Okay, now this is something that kind of confuses people at times. What do you think the audience would be for your paper?
Other teachers.
Okay, good. Yeah, would it ever be the students in the classroom?
And maybe the families of the students.
Okay, could be family. But the point is that it would never be the students. Most of the students would not understand what the study was about, so they cannot possibly be part of the audience. And yet, month over month, I'll get comments saying that the audience are the students in the classroom, but they're not the ones that are going to read this research. They won't know anything about this research unless maybe many years down the road when they're looking at research and they may come across this article and say, oh, I remember that. I was a part of that study. But since names are not mentioned in the research, then they won't have absolute proof of that. All right, significance of the study. Okay, so this is 1 paragraph. Describe why your proposed research is important to address how your study will expand our current understanding or fill gaps in the research literature. Explain why your study will be important to its targeted population or other educators who are teaching your targeted population. Okay, so you're going to need 2 APA citations there from the last 10 years. Your research question, that's 3 points, so please state that correctly. And you'll have some other points there that you'll add. And then this should look familiar. Okay, have you seen this before?
Yes.
Yeah, you should have seen that in your 695 class. Okay, so the reason for the color coding is just to keep the ideas separate so you know what the elements are needed. So when you write your research question, it is not necessary to color code it. Okay. Your assumptions. Now this is really important. Assumptions are what needs to be in place for someone to replicate your study. Okay, like the fact that teacher has extensive professional development training in the intervention area, or that the principal is given permission for the study, etc. List the assumptions in a bullet list, as long as you compose a preceding sentence in the form of the bullets. So if you use sentences in the bullet list, that's going to be better. It'll be easier to understand. Okay. All right, then limitations. There are certain things that you will not be able to control in the study. One thing I like to mention is sometimes our students, we don't know when we get students at the beginning of the year, we don't know which ones of those students get a lot of help at home from the parents or from other caretakers. We don't know if they have internet access at home, and the parents or other caretakers or perhaps brothers or sisters who are actually helping them to do research on the internet and to get additional information that's going to help them with their studies. So you don't know what that is. You may not know which students are being medicated and what type of medications they might be taking, or if they have challenge behavior attitudes. You'll learn those pretty quickly. But when you get those kids to begin with, you don't always have that information. Delimitations are things that you can control in the study. For example, you control the grade level of the students, which teachers participate in the study, what type of RTI, what's the tier level of the intervention, or any methods that you would use to collect data to show the strategy's effectiveness, etc. All right, and then the definition of terms. Okay, so there's 6 points. There's 6 definitions at a minimum. So let me ask you a question. If you give me 4 definitions, what's the maximum number of points I can give you for this part? Yeah, just 4. Yeah. Believe it or not, there are some who get confused about that, and they don't understand that 6 points for 6 definitions means 1 point per definition. So at least you
What
guys.
is an example of this?
Okay, you'll see in the sample paper.
Okay.
Okay, it's in there. Yeah, just you can have more than 6, but you have to have a minimum of 6. Now, here's the only place in the paper where you are allowed to plagiarize, so to speak. Okay, the definitions are literally quotes taken directly word for word from scholarly books or peer-reviewed journal articles. Do not use the same source for all your definitions. You may use the same source for only 2 definitions. Okay, so all right, and then you have to give your in-text citations. Okay, if you don't give an in-text citation, then you lose a half a point for that. All right, and then summary notes. These are things that you need to understand. You'll need 4 citations that are under different sections indicated above. In addition, the 6 definitions will also need to be cited accordingly. Now, this is really important. Theses and dissertations may not be used in assignment 1. You may use a meta-analysis and literature reviews to present an overall viewpoint. You may use book chapters to cite one from, and that's only for chapter 1. Okay. So this is where we're getting you off to a gentle start.
Okay, so you kind of broke up a little bit. We can use dissertations, you said?
No.
We can't. No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it says here, theses and dissertations may not
Not allowed.
be used in assignment 1.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And
You're
4
welcome.
references are needed for chapter 1.
You need 4 for the body of chapter 1, and you will need more for the 6 definitions. So if you use a citation for each of the 6 definitions, that will be a total of 10. Okay. If you use 1 citation to cover 2 of your definitions, then that would be 1 less.
So this is coming from the articles then, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, for example, some try to use the Webster's Dictionary to define some of the terms. Well, if the dictionary was one of the articles that you use in your research, then that's okay. But if not, then you should not use the dictionary for that. So you'll have plenty of information. You should have 8 articles that you have reviewed already. So hopefully you have enough information where you can pull some definitions from those articles and use them. Okay, so any questions about chapter 1?
When is it due?
Okay, that will be due. All right. The week that it's due will be, you'll see the notice of it in the weeks. So I think if I'm not mistaken, just off the top of my head, that's going to be at the end of week 2. Okay, you should see that in your weekly assignments. If it's due that week, then it should tell you that it's due. Okay.
Now, I know that this is all new, but when we would use Blackboard, we just go on to it and click and then upload it that way. Is it the same type of format?
It's going to be very similar to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to do a little bit more digging into it, but yeah, I believe it's very similar.
Professor,
Yes.
I just want to, it's personal to, I don't mind like sharing this, but it is the Jewish holidays coming up. So I just want to make sure that if I need a possible extension a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah. If you have anything special coming up.
It's Rosh Hashanah this week and the following is Yom Kippur. So I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, just send me a message telling me what's going on so that I don't think that that you're being late for the purpose of being late.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So any other questions about chapter 1? All right, so let's go to chapter 2. So this is going to be, I believe, starting on page 5. All right, so you have quite a few points on this one. I believe it's 38 points or 30 points. Yeah, I think it's 30 points. Okay, and you're going to notice that the structure of the assignment, I don't really like the way this was written up. So that's why I made a special point to put an example paper, the chapter 2, to show you exactly how it should be done. It's very, very similar to what you did in chapter 2 in 695. So in 695, you had a number of items that you used to describe your here we go. I'm sorry. Yeah, chapter page 7. I may have told you the wrong page there. All right, on page 7, if you look about in the middle of the page there, you'll see a bulleted list there. You'll see where it says APA citation, participants, research question, independent variable, dependent variable. You see that that I'm talking about? Actually, it's right here on your screen. So you see that okay? All right, so 24 points is wrapped up in the 12 articles. Okay, so these items here, each summary, These should be written as appendixes. Okay. And I know that some of the professors requested indexes or appendixes, others did not. You're supposed to have appendixes. That's the way the course was designed. So that's what you need for this. Okay, so
Sorry.
let's,
Sorry, I'm just gonna say, so the one that we're turning in this week, if our professor did not require appendices, what would you like us to do with that?
yeah,
Just
you
turn in
need
what we.
you need to make the appendices and you need to
Okay.
attach them.
All right, so for
Okay.
all 8 for this week and then 12 for chapter 2.
Yeah, for chapter 2, you need all 12.
Right, and then for this specific week, for turning in the literature review for this assignment, you would like the
This
appendix.
is the literature review, chapter 2.
Oh, I know, but this week's assignment is turning in the literature review. So I was just,
Oh, okay, I got you.
Like what we
Yeah,
previously
that's
Yeah.
what you should have turned in as part of your capstone project for the last course.
right, but my professor did not require the appendices because she said that we already summarized it within the paper.
Oh, okay,
So she didn't have us do the, okay.
okay. Well, I'm very sorry. That just created a lot of extra work.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so I am so sorry that happened.
it is what it
Uh,
is.
My professor had us upload, so our lit review was one file and then the appendices were another file. Do you want them all in one file or can I upload 2 files?
I would rather see one. It's no more work to do one than it is to do 2.
Okay,
So yeah, if you do both of them together, it's easier for me to keep track of them.
okay, perfect.
Okay, so very good.
All right, thank you.
add to those questions. So for turning in our capstone project, it should be not edited. Like we shouldn't have to go back and edit something we've already, like I know we'll have to edit and add to it to chapter 2, but as for turning it in, we don't have to add like the extra 4 articles or anything like that.
No, because in your 695, that was based on 8 articles, not
Okay.
12.
So that's acceptable to turn in then for this
Yes,
week. Okay.
the 8, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
The 4 extra ones are for this course.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, because the appendices we worked on, we changed the articles due to the, but okay. I just have to do that.
Okay.
All right, I will do it.
All right, it's if you follow the pattern that is here, you see the list there on the screen. If you follow that pattern,
I'll just
it
break
shouldn't be
apart
that
the
hard.
summary. Exactly, it shouldn't be
Okay.
that hard.
All right.
Because
So
mine are already
hopefully-
bulleted within the literature review, so I can take that out and put it in the appendices.
Yeah. See, in the literature review itself, what you're supposed to be doing with that, as you can see here, the 6 points, it says in showing what you learned from the existing published literature on your research question, group the 12 articles into multiple subheadings.
Right,
This is exactly what it was supposed to be in 695, except you were only working with 8 articles.
right. So the way she had us format it is write the 8 summaries and then put them in subcategories or into summarize the themes and then wrote the categories after that.
Okay. All right, I'll have to look at your paper and see
Sounds-
how
yeah.
that was set up. Okay, because if it was set up the way I think that you're describing it, then all you'll have to do is just copy what you did here and just follow the format that's in that sample paper. Okay, so when you look at the sample paper, and I will show that to you in just a few minutes, then you'll see how that's set up. All right. Now, this chapter, notice that dissertations, theses, chapters, blogs, or magazine articles are not allowed. Okay, you can have one literature review or meta-analysis, only one. And that would have to be one that you may have used in 695. Okay, 4 of the articles need to be published in the past 10 years. The remaining ones can be classic as long as they serve your capstone, your capstone research question. And then you need to submit all 12 PDFs with your chapter 2 work. Because I sometimes need to go back into the articles if I have a question about what it's covering, then I need to go back into the article and take a look at it. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, then please let me know. To test understanding here, what is a meta-analysis? What do you think that would be?
I actually don't know.
Okay, well, that's a good answer. All right, a meta-analysis is where you take and review other people's research.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you make your report on that variety of research articles. So in the end analysis for this course, you are actually writing a meta-analysis because you're taking 12 different articles, you're researching them, and you're reviewing them and putting that information into one paper. All right, so the next question then would be, is a meta-analysis, is that primary research or is it secondary research?
Secondary.
You're right.
Yeah.
It is secondary research. So what we're trying to do in this course is to use primary research to be able to develop our secondary research. And so the reason for not reusing the meta-analysis is that it has already been done. And so the important information has already been extracted from it. So to do meta-analysis of meta-analysis is almost pointless. You're not going to be able to extract any more meaningful information out of it. Okay, so any questions about that? Okay, good. So just give you a heads up, I have many students who will give me the body of the paper that has information about the 12 articles, but then they don't submit the appendices. So how many points are they losing when they do that?
$12?
12 times 2.
Oh, 24, sorry.
No. No, that's okay. So sometimes I get shocked comments back. Man, I worked so hard on that. I only got 6 points. What happened? And then I'll refer back to the instructions here, and it says, well, you need those, the analysis of each of the articles, and it has to be in appendix form. Okay, so please don't make that mistake. I love giving full points. Okay, I don't scrutinize a paper and see how many points I can take off of a paper. Okay, if everything is there, then that makes me happy. I'm going to give you as many points as I can. Okay. So any questions about that?
Do the additional 4 articles have to be like a particular kind of research, as some of them were in the previous class, or can it be any kind of research for the additional 4 we picked?
Okay, well, here's the thing that if the 4 new articles, if they don't match your subheadings, then what does that tell you you're going to need to do?
Just pick another style of research.
No. No, you're going to make a new subheading.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, not a problem. I'm not trying to embarrass you, believe me. We get the thinking juices going, and then oh, okay, all right. Well, that's not too bad.
Well,
Yeah,
on
that's a-
that note, though, now I'm a little bit confused, because in our previous class, I was under the impression the headings were just more like the topic versus the actual type of research. Like, for example, teacher interventions. It wasn't like I specified experimental research or like case studies. So now I'm a little bit confused.
Okay. All right. I think I understand what you're saying. Now, if the article fits your research question, see, that's what you're going to use.
Mhm.
Okay. Some of the research is going to be more along the lines of, you're going to have a variety of different research methods, and you can have articles that talk about statistics, things of that nature. You have a variety of different research methods. So as long as your article relates strongly to your research question, then you're going to use that. So you may have 3 or 4 subheadings of how you're putting that information together in the body of your paper. So the 4 new articles, they'll either fit those subheadings that you already have, or you may need to add another subheading or 2. And that's okay. Okay, so I'm not asking you to create an entirely new document. Okay, so most of the time you'll be able to just add those articles into different subheadings, just modify your paper that way. But sometimes you'll have to add an actual new subheading, and that's quite okay. So what this is helping us to do is to modify our research as we go along. And so any researcher comes across new information or supplemental information, then the authors can add that to their original research material and just expand on the subheadings and the other information. Okay. All right. So just keep in mind look at the notes and make sure that everything is okay there. If you have a question, just reach out, let me know. Because of the time differences, probably email or text messages will work. I usually answer back pretty quickly. Just keep in mind that if you send me a message at 10 o'clock California time, I might not answer you back until the following day, because 10 o'clock your time is 1 a.m. my time. So I may be sawing off logs at that time. Okay, chapter 3, methods. All right, this is the hardest chapter, in my opinion. I believe this one has 85 points to it. So it's almost half of the points for the entire course. So I'm not going to go into great detail on this chapter right at the moment. I just give you some heads ups. So looking here at chapter 3, the methods, you have some bulleted items. Pay attention, please, to the point values for these items here. If you miss a whole section here, I can't give you the points for that section. So please be careful with what you're putting in here. Okay, you have participants. In the participants, as you know from your city training, it's a legal requirement to make sure that your target students cannot be identified in your research material. So when you mention your participants, you must use hypothetical names. And you must go one step beyond that. You must state that these are hypothetical names. So in the event that you, for some reason, decided that you wanted to use their real names, your statement saying that they're hypothetical names, it validates that requirement. So there's reasons for that. Sometimes in one school district or another, there are students who may be parts of blended families or broken families. And sometimes estranged parents might be looking for their child. And if they come across their child's name in a study that's being conducted at a particular school, then that gives them the information that they need where they might conduct a kidnapping. So we don't want to cause any problems like that. So we will always use hypothetical names. The schools where the children are located, they need to be generalized. For example, instead of saying the Alum Rock School District in San Jose, California, well, that really pinpoints that school district. And so it could be a number of schools there, but it makes it easier to locate the student. So instead of even mentioning like San Jose, you might say a school in the southwestern part of the United States. So that way it makes it very difficult to pinpoint a school or a class where the student might be going to school. All right, you need diagnosis of functioning levels, any standard test scores, what the names of the tests when they were administered, performance relative to target behavior and related behaviors, any history with independent variable. And again, that's the intervention. In other words, what interventions have been tried in the past? Did they work? Okay, and then any secondary disabilities or problems, any medications that some of the students might be taking, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that's 4 points. Okay, and then the criteria for including and excluding participants from the study. That's 6 points. Okay, so you need to discuss not only what criteria was used to include certain students, but what criteria was used to exclude certain students. Okay, and then there's some samples down here of things that you might use for either including or excluding students. All right, then screening to pinpoint target behavior, 5 points. So there's quite a few points here. If you only just give me a brief short paragraph, which sometimes I see, and it doesn't cover the information that's here in these bulleted items, then you cannot receive 5 points for that. If you're doing a reasonable job, then you'll get the 5 points. Okay, setting and arrangements, 2.5 points there. So you've got some criteria. Materials and equipment, you have criteria there for 4 points. Response definitions and data recording procedures, 6 points. Okay, and then you have research method and experimental design, 4 points. Intervention general procedures, 7 points. Overall description of conditions, 2 points. Baseline is 6 points. So by now you're probably getting the idea that there are quite a few points that are going to be in that paper. Now here's the biggie. Intervention instructional procedures. How many points for this one section?
$30.
That's right, 30 points, and it's divided as follows, okay? And so I follow this very closely. All right, so what is the very first point? Is it right here?
Modify the subheading.
Yeah, so don't say intervention instructional procedures. Change that. Change that so that it's going to more closely match what you're writing about. Okay, so that's, yeah, if you don't do that, you don't get that point. All right, and then it gives you some examples there. All right, and you take a look here, almost each one of these bulleted items here, or where there's a check mark, there's a certain number of points associated with that. So as you look through here, these are the points for these different items here. So please make sure that you cover those response items. And it's really not that difficult. It's something that you're going to be writing about anyway, but just make sure that you've included these points in there. And then just keep going through until you get down here to the question. This is a very important question, so please ask this question to yourself once you finish that section of 30 points. Is there sufficient detail in your presentation of intervention procedures to permit an independent reader to implement all aspects of the condition with high procedural validity? That is, can someone else replicate your study? Is the flow of teaching natural, or do you feel that it's forced? If it feels forced, then it doesn't represent your style of teaching. So you need to modify it to match your style. Okay, so all of those 30 points there basically boils down to making something very much like a lesson plan that you would leave for a substitute teacher. Okay, we all have to leave a plan for substitute teachers if we're not going to be in the classroom. Many administrators require something to be written in advance at the beginning of the school year so that you have a model to follow. And then for a time that you might be out of the classroom, maybe you're going to professional development, maybe you're sick, maybe you have a doctor's appointment, whatever happens that takes you out of the classroom, you need to have a workable plan for your substitute. Most substitutes are diligent if you give them a working document. If you don't, if you just say, okay, we'll just wing it, then that's pretty much what's going to happen. And you might have a chaotic experience in the classroom. How many of you have worked as substitute teachers at one point or another in your career? Yeah, we all have. Didn't you just hate it when you'd walk into a classroom and there's no lesson plan?
Yeah.
Oh, it drives you crazy. How in the world can that teacher expect
Especially with
you?
kindergartners.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They can be kindergartners. It doesn't matter who it is. They need to have structure. Yeah, it's crazy. So just think of this as a very detailed lesson plan that you're going to leave for the teacher who's going to take over your class. And what you're writing here is giving something to another researcher so that they can replicate your study, and they can either prove or disprove your hypothesis. So that's basically what it boils down to. Then you have your reliability, which is 1.5 points. And that's basically how frequently will the data be collected. It gives you some examples there. And then keep in mind that the things that you're talking about when you're trying to state what the objectives are for teaching something in the classroom, you need to have measurable results. Okay, when you write your IEPs, do you write measurable expectations? Of course you do. So the same thing is going to occur here. You're going to need to have measurable expectations. All right. Then you have your chapter 4, which is it's probably the easiest one. Your data analysis, describe how you propose to analyze the effectiveness of the data. Are you going to use graphic displays to display that data? Are you going to use line graphs? How are you going to display that? All right, and then your conclusion. Now, something important about a conclusion is a wrap up. In a wrap up, you never introduce new ideas. You don't bring new ideas into your paper in the conclusion. You've already discussed what you're going to discuss. Now you need to wrap it up. If you find that something is very important and it didn't get in the body of the paper, then you need to go back into the body of the paper and include that somewhere in the paper, wherever it makes sense to include it. But please do not present new information in a conclusion. Then you have your discussion, and you're going to, for example, identify some future research questions for yourself, maybe other teachers, etc. Okay, and then on that paper for number 4, you're going to then be required to have all your references in alphabetical order in the correct way using hanging indent. And in that tutorial, if you're not familiar with hanging indent, that tutorial should be able to help you with that. Okay, then your appendices. So how many appendices should you have?
$12?
Yeah, it's a minimum of 12, right?
Oh, right.
Okay. Other than the articles, what are some other appendices that should be in there?
I was confused about this. Is it like sample graphs from other articles that you're reading about like how they're going to present the data, or example graphs of how I would do my data?
Yes.
Possibility?
Yeah, your data collection devices. If you have a letter that you send out to parents, if you want to include that, you can do that. Maybe requested signature sheets so that you have a.
So like the sample questionnaire, and
there
like
you go.
the
There you
sample
go.
data scatter plots and so forth.
Absolutely. So you could have, as many as 20, 25 different appendixes in there. Now, if you'll make a note of this, your appendices for the articles, when you give your appendix, for example, you might have let's say you're on Appendix G right now and you're starting to put your articles in there. So under Appendix G, then say Article number 1. Okay. And then under the next, one, Article number 2.
So it'd be Appendix A, Article 1, Appendix B, Article 2.
Yes. Okay, the reason for that is that sometimes by the time we get to Article number 12, we have lost track of our articles. And by that time, we're probably too tired to go back and look through the paper again to make sure that all the articles are there. So this way you don't forget any of them.
So when we're turning in our literature review, it will look like that. So Appendix A, Article 1, and then the article analysis. Appendix B, Article 2, and then the analysis.
Yes. Okay. And that's also a big help for me because you're only writing a paper for yourself, but I'm grading the papers from all of you. And so I can quickly lose track. So if I have the article numbers, then that helps me to move more quickly through your papers.
So each article is its own appendix.
Yes.
And then when you're titling it, should it be our Appendix A and Article 1 in the same heading, or are those two headings?
Yeah, well, you're going to have your Appendix A, and then the first line underneath it will say Article 1.
Okay, so there are 2 lines. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then we'll see how that's going to work. So let's
We'll
go
see it in an
to-
example, right?
Yeah, so let me take a look here. And let's see. All right, so let's use, all right, let's use this one here. Can you see this one? It says the use of video modeling to teach social skills. Are you able to see that? Okay, good. All right, so you see how this is set up? Okay, you see the running head, all capital letters. Okay, to check understanding, how many characters should be in that running head as a maximum?
Nine words? 1, 2, 3,
It should
4,
be
5,
50
7.
characters.
Okay.
There you go.
50
You had that on the tip of your tongue, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that means I should not see 2 lines for your running head. Okay, so it should be 50. Now you notice that the title of this is a lot longer than 50 characters.
So
So
short.
I have to modify my running head. Okay. All right, and then your page number goes up there. So it should show up as one line there. The use of video modeling to teach social skills, page 1. Okay, and then you go through, you have the student's name, Master of Education and Special Education, put your professor's name, and then the month and year the class started. So that's September 2021. All right, and then you have your abstract. And remember, the abstract is never indented. So please do not indent the abstract. All right, and then you notice that each section there starts on a new page. So chapter 1 starts on a new page. And it says here, make sure that you corrected any areas of attention that your professor pointed out to you for chapter 1. So most of the time I will not ask you to correct errors and resubmit the paper. Only if it's a real challenge, then I may ask you to rewrite that paper. But for the most part, I'll just ask you to make the corrections and then include that correction with your next chapter. And so we got all of this, significance of the study, and you'll notice that there's a number of items in here. What's this? This is chapter 1 here. Okay, so with chapter 1 being added to chapter 2, then there's no reference page for chapter 1. Okay, because we're going to put that at the end of chapter 2. All right, so review of related literature. So now you're going to have a discussion of your 12 articles. They're going to appear under different subheadings. Now there's an error here. So you see here where this student put all about video modeling 2018. Okay, it should be the author's name there. The author of whoever wrote the article about all about video modeling. Okay, so that was an error there. All right, and then you see other items in here. Another change in APA used to be that the first time you would use multiple authors' names for an article, you would have to write out all of the authors. And then each time after that, then you would use et al. Okay, that has changed now. You can use et al. From the very first one if it's more than 2 authors. If it's 2 authors only, then you have to put both of the authors. Okay, so.
Sorry, can I just ask one more question?
Sure,
My
sure,
apologies.
go ahead.
My previous professor, her rule was 3 and then et al. So are we gonna so we should go back and edit that to what you're saying? This is what it's
just
hard when
in
it's like conflicting opinion.
Okay, well, it's actually a part of APA.
Okay, because she
Okay.
was very specific that it was 3 and et al. And that's how she described it to be APA. She was very
Yeah. Well,
precise.
in your manual, let me see if I find it real quick here. But I can tell you what page it's
Yeah,
on.
and the other thing is that they said just the author's name and the year and the page number only when it's quotation marks.
Yeah,
That's a direct quote.
Yeah.
No?
yeah. So go ahead and use the APA manual. Let's see here. In-text citations is chapter 8. So if you want to make some notes. The reference list is chapter 9. And the reference examples is chapter 10. And then if you have any legal references, which more than likely you will not have for this paper, that would be chapter 11. So this is what the book looks like.
Right.
Okay, I get one with spiral bound because I use it a lot. You should see what my edition 6 looks like, barely holding it together. So I'm glad to retire that one.
So always put the page number, no matter if it's a direct quotation or not.
Yeah, just follow the example that's in the
Okay.
text, because it's required in certain circumstances and not required in others.
Right. That's why I thought, okay. I thought I read it. I must have read it wrong. I thought it was the name and the date for for when you're just referencing, and then the page number when it's a direct quotation.
Yeah, so just take a look at the requirements there, because it's going to change in how you're using the quotation. Okay, but remember, you don't ever put the name of the article as part of the
Right.
citation. All right, and then also remember that if you have more than 2 authors for an article, then use et al. Right from the very first in-text citation. Now, in the reference section, then you have to list all the authors. Okay, so there's no et al. in the reference section.
You have to let's, okay, because again, I was told something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
well, so then that's where academic freedom comes in, but I try
So-
to keep everything that can be defended in the APA manual so
Okay.
that I don't confuse people.
Okay, so our reference list, you're not allowed to put at all.
In the references, no, you don't use at all. I believe there might be one case where you can use et al. In the references. But that's only like if you have 10 or 11 authors.
What about on the article analysis?
Now, the article analysis, you're going to use the standard APA. And the
Like I'm talking about the analysis like template that should be in our.
yeah, in the, what do you call it? In the appendix, it's asking you to use the APA style citation for that article. So that's going to be identical to the way that you do it in your in the reference section. Okay, so let me see if I can get to that part here.
I apologize for all the questions. It's just, it's a little bit challenging when you're being told a few like different things.
No, I understand. And yeah, when you're working in a situation like that, it's usually better not to just use a personal opinion for how the papers need to be submitted.
I agree, but then you get dinged point, like my professor was really like, she would ding points if it wasn't to her liking, which is really unfortunate that it's not completely then based on how it's supposed to be in APA. Then she's like dinging points based on like how she felt about it. That's literally what she told us.
No.
So it's just a kind of.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that occurred. Now, I make comments on the papers, but I don't always deduct points. So if you see a comment from me, that does not necessarily mean that I took points. Okay, you'll see if the paper has a value of 30 points and I give you 10 comments in there, but you still got 30 points, then that means I didn't take any points off.
Yeah, she would do like 0.1 point, like a lot of the time, like on one side, I got like a 9.83 out of 10. And it was just because she didn't like exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened.
It's okay, I appreciate it. So I don't mean to be like super vocal. I just want to make sure it's like exactly the way you want it.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been with the university since 2000 as a teacher. So I've gone through my times where I thought everything had to be perfect and come to the conclusion I'm not perfect. And so I don't expect other people to be perfect. Here we
Or
go.
our students.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, when you're dealing with kindergartners, there's no perfection there. The only perfection and confusion.
And she also told us how to be the author's full name. We were not allowed to use initials either, and she would ding.
Huh. Well, if you take a look
It
at,
makes me want to like bite my A minus.
yeah, if you take a look at the APA manual, you'll see that actually, in your references, you're supposed to list the last name of the author and then the first initial.
And that's what I argued with her quite often.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you won't see that happen again. Okay, so take a look at your references here. You see the first one. Now this is using hanging indent. So you have 3 authors there. Okay, so you list all 3 authors. Now, if you go back into the paper and look at this author, then you'll see that it's a Carr et al. Because there's 3 authors. Okay, and then this one also, Agren, Hughes,
I can do it.
Toma, and Scott. Okay, are you able to see where I'm at? Okay, good. And let's see here, get one that's just 2. All right, here's one, Butler, RS, and Hodge, SR. Okay, so now this one, your in-text citations would have to mention both of the authors. Whereas the one above, Browder, Spooner, Cortade, contributors, etc., that would be Browder et al.
Why is that? Why would one with 2 be referred and the one with 3 not?
Okay, because the APA has not changed the role on this one yet. Okay, on this one, APA felt that it was too cumbersome to have to write down all of the.
Okay, so with 2 authors, you write both of their names. With
Right.
more than 2, you write the first and et al.
That's correct.
And you don't include the initial then? Because I heard you saying just the last name.
No, you can include the initials of the first author.
Authors.
Okay. But here, when you're using both of these authors here, then you should use their initials. Okay, so then you go through and you have all of these authors here. Okay, and you notice they're double spaced.
Mhm.
All right, so now we're done with the references. So now we have Appendix A. So here, this is a script that's going to be used. This teacher plans to use this script. So the script is here so that somebody else trying to do this this research will be able to follow the same thing. All right, the next appendix. Now this appendix here should be centered. Okay, and then you have the second title. So brainstorm sample workflow for video modeling. And so here again, that's another document. Okay, here's Appendix C, actor release form. So these are actual items that this teacher is going to use in the research. Okay, Appendix D, data collection sheet. And in the course, you'll see that there's some sample items. You can use those samples if you want as part of your appendices or appendixes. I've seen it used both ways. All right, and there's another example there. All right, then here in this case, Appendix F, Article 1 analysis. So this is what I'm talking about so that we don't accidentally miss an article. So you have your research question. Now remember, the research question is the research question for the article. It's not necessarily your research question. So I see that a lot. So that's why I'm mentioning this. The research question for the article is the one for that article.
I'm sorry, like that was completely different than that I was told in my other class. She had us put our research question there.
Okay.
And then once
that's
we
fine.
hit midway, then we were required to start putting our capstone research question.
Yeah. No, that's fine. If that's what you requested, then that's fine. I'm just pointing this out because this actually makes more sense, at least to me, that the research question should refer to the article. And then when you get down here a little bit further, then you'll see some other elements. So here you notice that the APA citation of the article, do you see how it's cited here? It's using the hanging indent because it's asking for the APA citation. So this is just, you go into the reference, just copy that and just paste it right in there. And then just make sure that the format is correct. Now, I've seen individuals fight formatting where they're trying to figure out how to make this line up here and this out here. There's a tool for that in Microsoft Office. So it's on the paragraph tool in the ribbon. So if you use that, then this will automatically format for you and you don't have to fight with it. Okay, you can spend hours fighting with the formatting here, and then as soon as you publish it, then the format's wrong again. So please be sure to review that video. I think it'll be helpful, hopefully. All right, then you see the independent variable here. So the independent variable is always the okay, fill in the word. The independent variable is the intervention. Okay, so that's what should be here. The independent variable or intervention was targeted educational program for parents and teachers, training for children and adolescents with autism and Down syndrome. Okay, and then of course the dependent variable, the expected outcome. And then the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory. So the summary should be at least a half a page. This one's pretty long, so they covered this one very well. The next appendix starts on a brand new page. So you see there, Appendix G, Article 2 analysis. Okay, so you see in the example how it's being presented. And so that should be a help. Okay, and yeah. Any questions so far? All right, so I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to discuss this evening. In our next meetings that we have, then we'll go over individual assignments in a little bit more detail. I went over everything pretty quickly tonight just to kind of give you an overview. Yeah, so any questions that you have, please send me either an email or a text message. And we'll get through the course and I'll figure out how these articles should be submitted. I think it's explained in the coursework, but I'll have to dig a little bit deeper. So.
And are there there's weekly discussion boards as well?
No. Let's see here. In the part that talks about the weekly meetings, you'll see that some weeks we have discussion and some weeks we don't.
Okay, so this week there is one listed.
What's that?
There is one listed for this week, however, but we don't have to do that one.
Okay, we're doing one. We're doing that one right now.
Oh, but she means like, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, she's right though. Yes, like there's definitely, I mean, Blackboard term, right? Blackboard Collaborate, like the meeting that we're here discussing, but I'm also referencing like the discussion board where we have to go in and type, and then
Okay, I
the peer
got you.
response
Thank you.
business.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that's what you're trying to say, Jillian, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So in the course, you'll have some discussion boards where you'll have to post commentary, and you'll have a first commentary that you make yourself. And then by the end of the week, then you comment on 2 other individuals' comments. Okay. So the first one is due toward the middle of the week, and then the last 2 are by the end of the week. And there's not a discussion each week. Most of the weeks there are. And let's see here. If I can.
Yeah, it says a definition of action research, then your capstone RQ, and then assumptions and limitations for chapter 1.
Yeah, so that means that you're going to have to go into your chapter 1 and see what those are going to be.
Okay, and all of this is due tomorrow night?
No, your first posting.
Yeah, that.
So
It
you
says
haven't-
Thursday at midnight, but it's like we
Yeah,
haven't had a
if you're a
chance
day
to.
or 2 late, that for the first one, it's not going to be an issue with me.
Okay, thank you.
Because we got
Like
started.
I haven't really written assumptions and limitations, and
Me neither.
do in 24 hours. And
Yeah.
full time.
No, you'll have some of that information that you've already worked with in your chapter 1 for your last course. So you already have a basis for your answer there.
Oh, we didn't write chapter 1 in our last course. We just did the literature review.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I will go back and review my course notes.
Just so you know.
Okay.
Are you sure, Jillian, that did you not do like at least the purpose and the audience? That was. No.
Oh, well, maybe was that the first assignment?
No, it's the first part of the capstone. So the capstone project was divided into 2 parts, part 1 and part 2.
No, we didn't do that part.
Okay. All right. Well,
We just did the literature review as the signature assignment. And before that, we were just building up to it with we did an article analysis each week. And then the last assignment was the literature review.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I will go into my notes and I've got the whole course. I just can't open it up right now.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That sort of sounds like I was in the wrong, but no, I wasn't in the wrong class.
Yeah, that's my issue. I'm like, it should be like the same, so we're not all like so perplexed.
Right. What's interesting though is that would have been nice if I could have already written my chapter 1. I had no idea.
Well,
Your capstone was supposed to like encompass parts of chapter 1 and parts of chapter 2. That's what I was under the impression.
Yeah, I'll take a look at my notes again and make sure that that I'm referring to the same thing.
Okay.
I don't have it right here in front of me right at the moment. Okay. So if you have any issues, I think someone just gave birth to a little baby boy. So she'll have a couple days off recovering. That's hard work giving birth. I've never done it myself personally, of course, but yeah, I have 6 kids, so I know what's involved in that. So it's a big undertaking. I'm surprised that she's taken the course this month. She's going to have a lot on her hands, but I respect that. So if something comes up and you need a little extra time, just be sure to let me know, and I try to work with you. Over the past year, I've dealt with students who have come down with COVID-19, and obviously needed to give them more time to finish their classwork. So sometimes, there's a saying, life happens,
Yeah.
and we just have to kind of swing with whatever comes our way,
Yeah.
and just deal with it.
My mom actually passed away a couple months ago during my classes, and so
Um,
I'm trying to finish this out for her.
Yeah. well,
Or and myself, but
yeah.
I know she
Sorry-
wouldn't want me to stop. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that, and yeah, my condolences.
Thank
It's
you.
always hard. Always hard to lose someone you love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being very understanding and flexible, and knowing we're all coming from different classes. And I really appreciate you answering all of our questions.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem.
Same. So yeah, I apologize if I'm coming a little, my father's in New York and I'm a little bit strong, so I'm trying to, I
Okay.
experienced a really tough past year and a half too, so.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Well, it's a
I can
lot of
imagine.
emotion and being back in like the actual school. I mean, it's like, it's a madhouse today. We were delivered quite an
Yes. And-
frustrating and unreal message from our director of our 2 charter schools today. So it's,
Uh-oh.
it's just been a
Oh,
bad
boy.
day.
Oh, those are so much fun.
Yeah.
You want to beat your head against the wall, but you don't
Uh-huh,
want to do it in front of the kids.
Well, thank you. And
All right. Well,
Much
thank you very much. And thank your families for giving you time to join here with the meeting tonight. Your family time is very important. I appreciate that. I appreciate the time that you take for these meetings. So have an enjoyable rest of your evening and the rest of your week. I'll send out a message as to the next collaborative meetings that we'll have.
I was just gonna ask, are
Yes.
we meeting weekly or?
It's not every week. I
Okay.
believe it's either 4 or 5 times during the course.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
and I will give you that information. And I'll give it to you in advance. Hopefully by tomorrow, I'll have it all figured out. So I'm still playing with the platform, trying to get everything figured out, so I don't make any mistakes myself. All right, so good night, everybody.
Thank
Night,
you.
thank
Have a good night.